Hi, my name is Donna and welcome to my sewing journey. I've got a great gift idea for you. So I'm a lip balm user and this is my keyring, and I have this cute little lip balm holder. This is actually one of the very first ones I made, and I've changed the design a little bit since then to make it a little bit more user friendly. However, this is what we're going to make today with a little plastic snap. Isn't that cute? And what's really great about this is you can make a lot of them in a short amount of time, but what's even better is the variety of fabrics that you can use. You can make them as a key ring. You can make them as a lobster claw, but look at all these cute little fabrics. You can do little, that's a heart-shaped plastic snap. So I have the snaps that match. You can do it in solids or pretty colors that have little fabrics. Florals. There's so many options. Harry Potter fan. Here you go. And, you know, something just a little sweeter. Look at this cute one. You can make see how I made the snap contrasting on this one? Just so many options. So I want to show you how to make these. So let's get started. Okay. So the first thing you're going to need is a piece of fabric that is 4.5 by 9 inches. Keep in mind that mine is made with a 1/4 inch seam. So if you don't feel confident with a 1/4 inch seam, adjust the width of your fabric and the length to what your seam allowance is going to be. So since mine is a 1/4 inch, I have this folded over the top to show you. That is what I need. This size is what I need for a 1/4 inch. But if you're going to do a 3/8, you're going to have to add a 1/4 inch to both sides. With that said, I folded it in half and pressed it just so I could see where that center piece is. And then I ironed on one side, or I pressed on one side, interfacing that is 8.25 inches by 1.5. Then after I put the interfacing on it, I pressed over what I believe that I'm going to use as the top at 1/4 inch. Keep in mind, when your fabric is folded, it's going to end up looking like this. We are going to be folding the fabric up when we make our project. So I use fabrics that tend to be, the direction doesn't really matter, but if you pick one, just understand that something's going to be upside down, either the back side or the front side, whatever you consider each. Just pick your fabric out accordingly. But I like the ones that are multi-directional, or where the pattern really doesn't matter, because I think they turned out the cutest. So that's one piece. Then you're going to need a tab, which you can use the same fabric. You can do, I happen to use a little contrasting to match the little ladybugs. Isn't that cute? And so this is 2 inches by 3 inches. Yes. Oh, 2.5. So this is 2 inches by 2.5. And I pressed it in half. And then I pressed it in half and pressed it in half again to like double bias tape. And I did put, this is a really thin piece of fabric and I wasn't real confident with it. So I did put one little piece of interfacing in one of the quarters of it. And so I'm going to press that over, and I'll be sewing this here and here on both sides to make that tap. And that's all the fabric that you're going to need. Then you have to decide, are you going to do it with a key ring, or I decided to do this one with a lobster claw, so I had the little split ring and the lobster claw. So you get to choose that. And then the other thing you're going to need is a plastic snap. And I haven't decided what color. I think I'm going to do a red one, but you'll need a plastic snap. So let's get started sewing. Okay, the first thing that I'm going to work on is the tab. And I threaded my machine with red thread, but I think I'm going to change it back to white for the rest of the project. Or I could do yellow, but I think white will disappear more, and that's why I'm going to use that. So you're going to fold it in half, fold it in half, make sure it's nice and flat. And how I like to do mine, do it however you like to, but what I like to do, I'm going to sew this with a 1/8 inch, 1/8 inch on each side of this. But I'm going to show you what I do. And back stitch a couple. And when I get to the end, I back stitch a couple, turn my project, go across, Try to get that set up at 8-inch. It's a little off, but we'll change it. There we go. So then stitch it back an 1/8. And I'm going to back stitch a couple. And then when I pull it off, just going to trim it up so that it's all ready. And then I'm going to take my ring and I put that on there. And I fold it in half. Gonna trim off these extra strings. Little threads and strings that are hanging off. Fold it in half. Figure out where you want that. And then I just do, to make it easier when I'm sewing it on the project, I'm just going to line it up and do a 1/8 on this as well. Just a little back tack on each end. And then you're ready for the next steps. But I like to do that for this little tab just because I want it extra reinforced. And so, I don't know if you can see that, but so I have a stitching here and stitching along both sides, and it makes it kind of strong. So that's why I do that. So I'm going to change out my thread, and then I'll show you what to do on the next step. Okay, the next step is, remember how we pressed down the 1/4 inch? You're going to turn your fabric around so that the other side is facing up. And I like to use the side that has, when I make my marks, I like to use the side that has my interfacing on it because it's going to have the 1/4 inch seam on it. So I'm going to fold this in half. And to keep it stable, I just like to put a pin to hold it in place while I'm doing the next step. Then, because this is my raw edge, so when I sew, I'm going to sew right here on this raw edge. So I'm going to use the interfacing. So I'm going to measure from what's going to be the edge of the fabric on the one side that is the folded side. I'm going to measure from that side a 1/2 inch over. But from this side, instead of a 1/2 inch over from the edge of the fabric, I'm going to do it from my seam allowance. So my seam allowance is here. That would be my 1/4 inch. I'm going to measure from the 1/4 of an inch over 1/2 inch, or just measure 3/4 of an inch from the edge. But keep in mind, depending on what your seam allowance is, you're going to go 1/2 inch. So if you want a 3/8 inch seam, whatever your seam is going to be, a 3/8, 1/2 inch, whatever you choose this to be, you want to be a 1/2 inch over. So you're going to have a line here and a line here. Then I'm going to measure down 1 inch from my lines on both sides. And just to make it easier for myself, I draw a line just to make it easier so that I can see the whole thing. And then this one, you want to make sure it extends to that 1/4 of an inch, because you can see my interfacing wasn't quite exactly centered. It happens. So I want that to be here. So this, where this little plus is, and this edge is, I am going to take my cutter. I'm going to take this. I'm going to go from the top where this 1/2 inch mark is to this mark right here, and I'm going to trim it. Okay. Oh, missed. Went off a little bit. It's okay. It'll just make it pointier. This one I'm going to go to the edge of the fabric, to that mark. So it's going to look like that, but keep in mind when I sew it, I'll be sewing in here like that, so they'll match up. Okay, so you'll be sewing here. And so the next step is to do just that. You're going to leave the folded end open, and you're going to sew your 1/4 inch seam here, 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 and then all the way down this raw edge. So you're going to sew here, 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 down, and then all the way down, and unfold this. When you sew that, make sure your side your side raw edges are all matched up. Sew that all the way to the end. There's no holes. You just sew all the way to the end and leave this opening. And I'll show you what to do next. Okay, I sewed my 1/4 inch all the way around. This is the folded edge. That's the raw edge. I am now going to trim these corners. So what I do, so you can see this, I'm going to trim this. And I like to get close to my stitching, but don't cut your stitching. But like an 1/8, because you want to turn this. Okay? So I take my little tool. Push that into the, oops, sorry. Push that in there. Take my tool, fish it down. And what I use is my tool. Don't use scissors, but you want to push out the corners. Finish turning it. And then I'm going to press it. I'm going to put it on my ironing board and press it. But don't undo this part of your folding. And what I'm going to do is open it up on the side with my seam. Get my thumb. Open that seam up. Fold it down. You want that 1/4 inch fold all the way around. Since I already pressed it, it kind of hangs out there. Get that. So you want to fold it nice and crisp at the seam. And then you want to get the rest of it on that crease that you already made. Oh, I see, that's a little off. So you get that on that crease that you already made. And then press this all the way around. You just want to make sure you get that pressed nice and flat. I'll press mine, you press yours, and meet you right back here. Okay, the next step after you've pressed it is putting the tab on, and you're going to use that open end. You're going to insert it in here. Figure about how far. And what I do is I use this little mat. They're 1-inch squares, and I just center it. Figure out how much I want. Kind of eyeball it so that it's centered. And then I'm going to stitch across here 1/8 of an inch. And just a top stitch right here. And then I'll meet you back here. You sew yours, I'll sew mine. Okay, you can see that I top stitched right here all the way across. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch this little tab from this corner up here and down here, 1/8. And I'll meet you back here. As you can see, I top stitched right there. Now what you want to decide is which side fabric do you want the tab up? This side or this side? And because I'm using this bright yellow, I decided to use this color on my, I don't really want that in the middle of my little ladybug, so I'm going to do mine in this direction, because then you won't see that. So I put it down here, and so I don't get a bulk of fabric. I like to take a ruler and fold it over that. And I use a really thin ruler, and I'm going to match the top of this tab with my 1/8 inch seam here. So there's just a tiny little gap. And I'm going to take my ruler and I take that corner and press that out and do both sides so that I get rid of that bulk of fabric. And then match your side seams. Okay, match your side seams. And then I'm going to sew from here all the way up, and from here all the way up on both sides, 1/8 inch on both sides. And I'll meet you back here. Okay, I finished sewing the sides. And so now all you have left is the snap. So make sure you have 2 of the ends and a male and female. Both sides. Oops. Both ends. And you can put whichever one you want on which side. I like to put the male on the flap, but it's up to you. But what makes it really easy for me, hopefully you can see this. When I do mine, I center it here on, and then I use this line right here to decide. And I like to come down, look at, keeping in mind the size of this, so that I center it just past, so my tab is here. So I'm going to put it, see where the end of my tab is? I'm going to put it just beyond that tab. And I'm going to use that line that's centered to do so. And I just pick up the whole project. Do 2 sides at once. Then I'm going to put the female on this side. So push that pack back through there. Push it in. Put my female tip on. And I get my tool. Make sure it's centered. And squeeze. Do the same thing for the male side. Put your tab on the side. Push it. Make sure you push that fabric all the way down. Put the male end in here. Here's your tool. Make sure it's centered on that little, make sure it's centered. Squeeze it. And voila! Then you put your little chapstick in there. See how it's much looser. Isn't that cute? Oh my goodness, look how cute, right? And take my little lobster claw, and this is a split ring. So you just find the opening. Fish that in. And now I have a cute little lobster claw chapstick holder. Okay, we're all done. There's our cute little project. If you enjoyed making this one with me, follow and subscribe for more. I have more projects coming, and with Christmas coming, we can make lots of little fun things in a short amount of time. Have a great day sewing.